today's video we're going to be talking punters versus bookmakers, and the first question for you, Pete, is what are the tricks that bookmakers use to get us spending our money?
Well, I think they use a number of tricks. The first one is quite regularly they'll focus on the big races, which are very hard to find winners of. So if you
like the Grand National,
absolutely, that's probably the biggest one. That's the one they make the most money out of. Then you've got the Cheltenham Gold Cup. And they do it on a day. Absolutely. All the big races, they will go on at the races or Racing UK in the morning. And it's quite funny, really, that you look every day, the hardest race that they pick for punters to allure them in and say, oh, there's been money for this and there's been money for that. And it tends to be on the big races of the day. That's not the only tricks they use. On short price favourites, they will give you a distance bet, which in the long run is basically telling you which horse will win by a certain distance. They are no-goes, really, because that gives money back to the bookmakers. There's always an enticement, and away from racing, they do football. You like a football bet. And they'll say something like, well, if you have 9 teams to win, if you get 8, you get your money back. Well, that's enticing you to play 9 teams. I mean, realistically, you're not going to win anyway. But it does make people think, oh, I'll go for 9 teams. And the more difficult the race, the more they will push. And the psychology behind getting one over on the bookmakers is to do exactly the opposite to what they want you to do. And if they're publicising it...
So go for little races.
If they're advertising it, they want you to bet on it. Keep away from it.
Well, that's very helpful to know. And so what makes the difference between a clever punter versus a mug punter, as you say in the business?
Well, a clever punter is someone who will do completely the opposite, as I said, from a bookmaker. If they are giving you a more difficult race to pick, find an easier race to pick. If they are enticing you in with a double, which they often do, a daily double, I mean Sky Bet do the Sky Boost double with Alex Hammond, I would say over the long run you're going to lose. And just don't do it. Do completely the opposite. The mug punter is also someone that they will send free bets to. You know, you're there, you've lost some money, and you're thinking, what do I do next? They're quite clever. Their marketing will know if I send you a £20 free bet, you're likely to lose that and lose a bit more. And they can see the patterns. If you're confident and you're patient and you stick to your bets with once a week, 2 or 3 times a day, whatever, that's fine. They don't like punters like that. They're like punters that go on instinct and they play on that.
See, with me, I can take it or leave it.
Yes.
So I must be a clever punter. And how should you react when you're winning, and how should you react when you're losing?
Exactly the same. And what I mean by that is if you lose, just take on the chin. You know, you've spent £100, it's gone. Let it go. You know, don't think, oh, I've lost £100, I've got to get it back. And if you win, then try not to keep winning. What I mean by that is if you've won, don't keep trying to double your money and triple your money and whatever. So
whatever happens, just be satisfied, be like, right, I've lost that, leave it, I've won that, right, cool.
Absolutely. And that's harder for a lot of people, especially young people.
Especially if you're actually at the race as well, you're going to get caught up in that atmosphere. So how do you stop people doing that when they're there, they've had a few pints?
Well, that's the thing. I think when someone goes racing, they're having a leisurely bet. They're doing it for fun. They're doing part of the day. They're having a drink.
A fiver here and there.
Yeah, that's no harm to anyone. I'm talking about people who
are sat at home on their armchairs, like
behind a computer. You know, it's so easy. There was race after race after race to do that. When you go racing, it's different. And funny enough, when I go, I don't bet that much when I go racing. For me, it's more the day out. But someone like yourself loves all the factors around the day. And having a bet 5 or 10, that's fine. But if you're betting bigger, then I think you've got to, when you lose, not be scratching your head going, oh God, I've just lost that money. If you're doing that, scratching your head, or you're worried, you're betting too much.
And what's the worst bets that you can do then? Well,
the worst bets you can do are, and people do win from them, but why people do trebles and multiples and several bets and a lucky 15 are...
I love an accumulator.
I know. But realistically, how often are you going to win that? You might... What's your biggest win on an accumulator?
One Christmas I won like £2,000, nearly £2,000,
Yeah, and that's probably me. That's happened to me once before as well. But with consistently doing singles...
And that was off £1?
which is fantastic.
£1, yeah. I used to like £1 a week.
Yeah.
Do a little accumulator.
Yeah, that's fine. But if you do it every day and you do these lucky 15s, that's why bookmakers promote lucky 15s. They love it. And when I've posted on Twitter before about lucky 15s, people are like, "Oh, but it's a great bet." It is in moderation. You know, if you do a 50p.
So how do you moderate that then?
Well, I would have a very small. I mean, even on the website, I put a lucky 15 or Paynton, but it's very minimal, so that the returns can be very good. If you're whacking in £50 a day on lucky 15s, £100 a day on lucky 15s, you're going to be loser. If you spend £3 or £4, that's nothing. To the potential returns are very high if you get 4 good winners. And likewise with an accumulator, it makes sense to go, right, I'm going to have a £2 bet, a £1 bet, and then the odd time you win 2,000. But people spend fortunes on accumulators. Fortunes.
So that's where the value thing comes in. So what's your view on value when betting?
Value on betting is important in as much that you've got to look for the best price. And you've got to get the best price. I mean, I bet regularly on horses, and people get confused when I was talking about value before. My point is, there's no value in a loser. I could take 10 to 1 on a horse, and it comes down to 2 to 1. But if it's lost, I've not won anything. It's like buying a bag of outdated tomatoes for £1 a week after they're out of date. Well, there's no value because you can't eat them. So
you could make some soup, perhaps.
Well, you could. Throw
them at someone you don't like.
You could. But so it is. I always look for, and the tips that I put up, 80% of those beat the prices. But my point is, if it loses, it's not value. If it wins, and over the time, you will win money by looking for value.
So we've briefly already covered it, but just to reiterate, what are the races to avoid? The
races to avoid would be big handicaps, and as I said, to reiterate, Grand Nationals, Gold Cups, Ascot handicaps, York handicaps. All the big meetings that you see on a Saturday are bookies benefit days. They are generally bookie benefits days. If you've got 7 races on ITV, I'd say out of the 52 weeks that they show racing, 50 of those are the most difficult racing of the week. So you've got to try. You're winning money. You're trying to win money at the end of the day. So don't go for the hardest. And people say to me,
people like a challenge though.
They do, and people go, well, handicaps are the best thing. I've yet to meet a punter who makes money from 12, 15, 20 runner handicaps. And last time I won the Grand National, you probably 1987. How old are you there?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. But that's the last time I won the Grand National.
Let's just say I wasn't even born.
That's the last time I won the Grand National.
Really?
So yeah. And
I won it 2016 or was it 15?
Right.
When Many Clouds won.
Yeah.
2015.
Yeah. So, but it's something that.
Rest in peace, Many Clouds.
Yeah. They'll make millions. So anything that they really push, try to avoid it. I mean, I go for a Hereford or silly race 2 o'clock instead of the Grand National. I put the bet on for the family, but it's not something I will bet on.
We know the races to avoid and the sort of bets that we should avoid, but when is the ideal time to place that bet?
Very, very tricky question and a good one. I think if you're looking for value, and we're going back to the value argument, you do it the night before. Because quite often the bookmakers will price up a horse wrong, and that's why I put them up the night before. They're harder to find now because bookmakers are a bit more savvy, and the morning is quite good, but what you shouldn't do is follow people who follow the market movers. And what I mean by that is odds checker, everything in blue, people who have already backed it from the night before, and then people cotton onto that. Well, you're not getting the value, and you're missing the price. A good person who studies will get the price the night before, and a bad one will basically next day see that something's been backed, do it, they've lost 3 or 4 points on it, publicise it on Twitter, oh, this is the one, but all they're doing is seeing markets move.
They're just following the crowds.
Absolutely.
And then that's just lowering down the odds.
Yeah, and that's what will happen. And then when people say, oh, well, it's drifted in price before, that means something. It doesn't, it's just going back to the price it should have been. But there are a lot of people, I'd say there's a high percentage of people on Twitter, on social media, who are simply following the people that have done the hard work before and simply looking for a blue line, which you get on Odds Checker, which indicates a horse is being backed in. And finally, on best times to place a bet, a lot of people bet on exchanges just before, and I don't play the exchanges, but if you are playing the exchanges, I think just before the race starts is also a good time to place a bet.
So we've learned how to be a clever punter, we know the races to avoid, we know the best time to put the bets on, but how many accounts should we have open at one time?
Open every single one that you can. Don't be loyal to a particular company. There's no need to be. They'll market, they'll advertise, and they'll promote in such a way that makes you feel affiliated to a particular bookmaker. But the best thing is to get the best price on a horse or a football match or whatever, and don't feel that loyalty to a particular brand. Open as many as you can. You might find that if you win and you're patient, you might get closed down by one or two. But you'll always have enough in reserve to have a bet and go with a bet. And there's always shops that you can go to have a bet. But bet wisely, bet patiently, and get the best odds. Don't give your money away.
So how much money should they keep in each bank?
Well, it depends. I mean, obviously, if they're betting regularly on football or racing, whatever, try and keep the same amount in each one, and that can vary from a tenner in each one to £100 in each one. But I can't stress enough. I think it's most important to have as many accounts as you can, because the advertising is very, very good to make you loyal to one. But if you spread your money across as many sites as you can, don't be tempted by casino. I'm not a great lover of casino, roulette. That's all in their favour. But betting on horses and football, you can judge. You can make that judgment, and then whatever you decide to do it.
It's not just algorithms.
Yeah, it's not just 78% in your favour. This is you making a judgment and a decision on a particular bet.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that insight, Pete, and we'll see you guys soon.